In modern warfare, the weapon that strikes is important, but the system that sees first decides victory. Every warship's real strength lies not merely in its missiles or guns, but in the eyes that watch the skies and seas, the radar. For the Indian Navy, that eye has long been foreign. For over a decade, its most advanced destroyers and frigates have relied on a radar system designed and built in Israel, the EL-M2248 MFSTAR. This radar has been the brain and the sentinel of India's surface fleet, guiding missiles, tracking threats, and ensuring survival against modern airborne attacks. But today, the Navy stands on the threshold of a transformation. A new indigenous radar, the Long-Range Multifunction Surveillance Radar, or LR-MSR, is set to replace MFSTAR in India's future warships. It is more than a technological upgrade. It is a symbol of strategic independence. This is the story of how India is moving from foreign dependence to self-reliance in one of the most critical aspects of naval warfare, how the Indian Navy is preparing for its radar revolution.
Before we move forward, please like, share, and subscribe Strategic Vanguard and be up to date with the latest news and happenings from the world of defense, strategic, and international affairs. Tune into our video channels in YouTube and Rumble. And if you want to hear the audio version, tune into our Strategic Vanguard channels in Spotify and Amazon Music.
When the first Kolkata-class destroyer entered service in the early 2010s, it carried on its towering mast a new kind of radar, the Israeli-built MFSTAR, short for Multifunction Surveillance, Tracking, and Acquisition Radar. For the Indian Navy, this was a quantum leap. MFSTAR was one of the world's most advanced naval AESA radars. Using thousands of electronically controlled transmit-receive modules, it could scan the skies in microseconds without moving its antenna physically. It could detect and track enemy aircraft, sea-skimming missiles, and even small drones far beyond the horizon. It wasn't just a radar, it was the nerve center of the ship. Integrated with the Barak 8 surface-to-air missile, MFSTAR allowed Indian warships to detect and destroy incoming threats long before they became lethal. This radar turned ships like INS Kolkata, INS Kochi, INS Chennai, and the later INS Visakhapatnam into true fleet area defense platforms. For the first time, India could deploy a task force where one destroyer could protect the entire formation with layered air defense. The arrival of MFSTAR changed how India's Navy fought and how it was perceived globally. It was a major milestone in Indo-Israeli defense cooperation. Yet, beneath this success lay an uncomfortable truth. India's most powerful warships were looking at the world through someone else's eyes. Technological partnerships are never free of strings. As the years passed, the Navy began to feel the subtle weight of foreign dependence. Every radar has its own software architecture, encryption keys, and update protocols. The MFSTAR, being a proprietary Israeli system, remained under the control of its manufacturer. India could operate it, maintain it, and integrate it within limits, but could never truly own it. The radar worked seamlessly with the Barak 8 missiles co-developed by India and Israel. But as India's own missile programs matured, such as the Quick Reaction Surface-to-Air Missile, QRSAM Navy, the Long-Range SAM upgrades, and the future XRSAM, integration with MFSTAR became increasingly complicated. Moreover, the radar was expensive. Each unit cost tens of millions of dollars, and with every new class of destroyers or frigates, the Navy had to look abroad once again. Logistics, spares, and upgrades all depended on foreign supply lines. Strategic autonomy, the ability to fight and sustain a war independently, cannot exist with such vulnerabilities. In a time of crisis, or in a world where alliances shift overnight, a nation must control its own eyes, ears, and mind. The Navy knew this, and so did India's defense scientists. The answer was not to look elsewhere, but to look inward. Over the last several years, the Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO and BEL Electronics Limited, BEL, have quietly been developing a successor to MFSTAR. The result is the LR-MSR, Long-Range Multifunction Surveillance Radar, an indigenous AESA radar designed specifically for the Indian Navy's operational needs. The LR-MSR represents the next stage in India's radar evolution. Drawing on experience from the Swordfish long-range tracking radar and other indigenous sensors, DRDO has built a naval radar that matches global standards. The LR-MSR's power lies in its flexibility. It uses active electronically scanned array AESA technology, allowing the beam to be steered electronically rather than mechanically. It can detect high-altitude aircraft at ranges of over 300 kilometers and low-flying sea-skimming missiles at shorter but equally decisive distances. More importantly, the radar is multi-mission capable. It can simultaneously track hundreds of targets, aircraft, drones, surface vessels, and ballistic missiles, while guiding multiple missiles in flight. Its advanced signal processing algorithms are designed to filter sea clutter, resist jamming, and maintain lock even in heavy electronic warfare conditions. The system is compatible not only with Barak 8, but also with India's upcoming naval SAM systems, ensuring complete interoperability across future warships. In short, LR-MSR is not a derivative. It is a fully Indian creation, tailored to India's maritime doctrine and built to operate across the vast and complex environment of the Indian Ocean. The induction of LR-MSR is far more than an engineering achievement. It represents the restoration of control, technological, strategic, and economic. With LR-MSR, India gains complete ownership over the radar's design and source codes. This means upgrades, software patches, and new capabilities can be added without waiting for foreign permission. India can decide when and how to enhance its systems, making the Navy's modernization cycle entirely self-driven. Cost is another major factor. Domestic production through BEL significantly reduces long-term expenses. Instead of paying in dollars for imports, India can reinvest in its own industrial ecosystem, creating jobs and expertise that strengthen the national defense base. Integration is equally crucial. Indigenous radars can now work seamlessly with indigenous missiles, communication systems, and combat management software. This synergy builds the foundation for true network-centric warfare, where every sensor and shooter across ships, aircraft, and satellites share data in real time. There is also an export dimension. India has already begun offering its warships to friendly nations such as Vietnam, the Philippines, and several African countries. Selling a warship equipped with an indigenous radar means no foreign licenses, no third-party restrictions, and complete independence for the buyer. A major advantage in the global defense market. Above all, LR-MSR fulfills the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, not as a slogan, but as a working reality in one of the most complex technological domains.
Before we move forward, please like, share, and subscribe Strategic Vanguard and be up to date with the latest news and happenings from the world of defense, strategic, and international affairs. Tune into our video channels in YouTube and Rumble. And if you want to hear the audio version, tune into our Strategic Vanguard channels in Spotify and Amazon Music.
No discussion about India's naval modernization is complete without acknowledging the shadow cast by China. Over the past decade, the People's Liberation Army Navy plan has expanded at a pace unseen in modern times. The Type 055 destroyers, massive warships carrying cutting-edge AESA radars and long-range missiles, are at the forefront of China's blue water ambitions. They are equipped for area air defense, missile interception, and even early stages of ballistic missile defense. China's radar technology has matured rapidly, and its exports to Pakistan, such as the radars aboard the Type 054 AP frigates, have brought these capabilities into India's immediate neighborhood. Against this backdrop, India's reliance on foreign sensors was an obvious strategic gap. With LR-MSR, that gap begins to close. India will no longer depend on imports to match adversary capability. Instead, it will field radars built in India by Indians for Indian conditions, systems that can be upgraded at will and integrated into a uniquely Indian doctrine of sea control and denial. The LR-MSR is not merely a radar, it is an equalizer. The Indian Navy plans to introduce the LR-MSR in a phased manner. The first platforms likely to carry it will be the follow-on Project 15B destroyers and the upcoming Project 17A advanced stealth frigates, currently under construction. As production scales up, the radar could be retrofitted on existing Visakhapatnam-class destroyers, replacing or supplementing their MFSTARs. Future carriers, including upgrades for INS Vikrant and the proposed INS Vishal, are also expected to feature the LR-MSR as part of their sensor suites. In the long term, the goal is clear: a fully Indian sensor architecture across every major combatant of the Navy, from carriers and destroyers to frigates and future unmanned surface vessels. The Navy envisions a battle network where every radar, every missile, and every data link speaks the same indigenous language. When that happens, the Indian Navy will operate sovereign carrier battle groups, formations whose sensors, weapons, and brains are all made at home. Technology shapes doctrine, and doctrine shapes destiny. The induction of LR-MSR will trigger a broader evolution in how India conceives maritime warfare. First, it strengthens network-centric warfare. A radar built to integrate natively with Indian command networks allows ships, aircraft, and shore-based systems to share target data in real time. This means that a missile launched from one ship could be guided by a radar on another, a capability essential for cooperative engagement. Second, LR-MSR opens the door to naval ballistic missile defense. India's work on exo-atmospheric interceptors and long-range tracking radars on land can now be complemented by a sea-based sensor capable of detecting and tracking ballistic threats over the horizon. Third, it reinforces India's ambition to operate as a blue water power, capable of sustained operations far from home, with no dependency on external logistics chains for critical systems. And finally, it strengthens the Navy's integration with the Air Force and space domains. As India expands its network of satellites and airborne early warning assets, LR-MSR can become a key node in a truly joint command structure spanning air, sea, and space. Indigenous success never comes without obstacles. The development and deployment of LR-MSR face several technical and operational challenges. AESA radars require thousands of TR modules, each a miniature transmitter and receiver. Achieving high reliability in the salt-laden humid maritime environment is a demanding task. Ensuring stable power supply, efficient cooling, and resistance to corrosion will be vital for long-term performance. The radar must also be tested extensively against realistic threats: high-speed sea-skimming missiles, stealth aircraft, and emerging hypersonic systems. Integrating LR-MSR seamlessly into different classes of ships, each with its own combat management system, will require careful engineering. Production capacity is another concern. BEL and DRDO must ensure that manufacturing rates can match the Navy's shipbuilding tempo. Every delay in sensor delivery can ripple through the construction schedule of entire warship classes. Yet, India has faced such challenges before. The Swordfish radar, developed from Israeli technology, became a cornerstone of India's ballistic missile defense program. The Arudra and Ashwini radars for the Air Force proved India's competence in AESA technology. LR-MSR stands on that foundation, and with each success, the gap between imported and indigenous narrows. Once fully operational, LR-MSR will deliver benefits that extend far beyond the Navy. Strategically, India will gain full control over its maritime surveillance and engagement architecture. There will be no dependence on foreign suppliers for critical updates or spare parts. The Navy's electronic warfare and signal processing capabilities will remain entirely sovereign. Economically, indigenous production will feed a growing ecosystem of private suppliers, research institutions, and component manufacturers, all contributing to India's defense industrial base. Diplomatically, the ability to export advanced radars and warships equipped with them will enhance India's stature as a reliable defense partner in the global south. Nations seeking affordable, non-aligned alternatives to Western or Chinese equipment will look toward India. Militarily, LR-MSR will enable the Navy to operate its carrier battle groups with greater confidence. Each ship will act not just as an individual combatant, but as a sensor node in a vast, interconnected web. This transformation will make India's fleet more responsive, resilient, and lethal across the entire Indo-Pacific theater. The story of India's naval radar journey is, in many ways, the story of India's rise as a maritime power. The MFSTAR radar from Israel was a turning point. It gave the Navy modern eyes and allowed India to leap a generation ahead in fleet air defense. But it was never meant to be permanent. It was a bridge from the dependence of yesterday to the self-reliance of tomorrow. The LR-MSR, built by DRDO and BEL, is that tomorrow. It is India's own eye in the sky, the symbol of a navy that no longer borrows sight, but creates its own vision. When the first Indian warship sails with LR-MSR on its mast, it will represent more than a sensor. It will represent confidence, the confidence that India can design, build, and fight with systems of its own making. The exit from MFSTAR is not the end of an era, it is the dawn of one. The Indian Navy's radar revolution has begun, and it will shape the battles, the balance, and the destiny of the seas in the decades to come.
Thank you for joining us on this Strategic Vanguard deep dive. If you found value in this analysis, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We bring you fresh deep dives every Wednesday and Saturday here on YouTube and Rumble, and you can also catch the audio versions on Spotify and Amazon Music. Just search for Strategic Vanguard Deep Dive. For more insights, articles, and discussions, subscribe to our blog at strategicvanguard.com. Your support helps us grow and bring you more in-depth analysis on defense, geopolitics, and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay strategic.